We continue our coverage of the Texas Hill Country, where devastating floods swept through communities in central Texas. Now the disaster has raised serious questions about the timing of emergency alerts. Joining us today is Jim Carlton, West Coast correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. His latest reporting examines how the warnings came too late for many and what it says about the growing strain on our emergency systems in an era of extreme weather. And you can join the conversation. If you have a question for Jim, you can call or text at 713-440-8870. Jim, welcome to Hello Houston.
Good to be here. Hi, Celeste.
Hi.
Yeah, Jim, we have heard stories about people who had no sense that they were in danger when they went to bed on the night before the 4th of July, who woke up in the middle of the night to discover water flooding into their cabins or their RVs. So tell us, what sort of warnings did people get before this catastrophe fell upon them?
Hi, Doug. That's what we're really trying to ascertain, the warnings. That there's really, right now, the National Weather Service has been very adamant that they gave proper warning. They've been getting some, criticism online, but actually, 1:18 a.m., they put out an alert, flash flood emergency. That signals you should evacuate. The flood waters didn't actually hit Camp Mystic and the other camps and RV parks until around 4 a.m., 4 to 4:30 a.m. And so the question now is, how did they actually know? Did the Sheriff's Department, Kerr County, go door to door? We don't have evidence yet that they did. A lot of times, I'm in California, when we have a fire disaster, usually the sheriff will go door to door or the fire department. In this case, there's a critical lapse. Cell phones, these girls didn't have cell phones. They're not allowed to there. I don't think even the staff. And so there's going to be some adult in the camp that presumably does. But Doug, right now, we're trying to figure out what alert they got, if any.
Well, you raise an interesting question there. This is a very remote area, and I wondered about cell phones. So were there issues with any cell phone coverage, or was it simply an issue that these girls just didn't have their cell phones? Or were cell phones not allowed at the camp?
Yeah, what we're hearing, I had boys and Boy Scouts out here in California, and the rule is no phones, no electronic equipment. For obvious reasons, they want you to focus. They don't want you to be buried in your gadget, right? So at these camps, they have a no electronics policy, and it's for staff and for the kids. I say girls, there's some boys camps too, so presumably boys camps as well. But I think that the adult in charge, the grown-ups in charge, would have phones. And the question is on the cell coverage. I think it's said to be very spotty there. And so they do have a code red alert where the sheriff can push out a wireless alert that, you need to seek higher ground. But did they, we're trying to find out when that was sent out. And was there coverage in that area? Those are good questions, actually.
Now, Jim, I do also have questions when we're looking at the timeline of this. From different reports that I've been seeing is that some of these warnings were started Thursday. And so do we know if some of these camp directors, Camp La Junta was able to get out, all these boys, and I know that was a different part of the Guadalupe, but it didn't seem that far off. Can you elaborate on maybe some of that communication? Do you know, based on from Thursday, what was happening until July 4th, that morning?
Well, Celeste, the real disconnect here is, you're right. The Texas Division of Emergency Management, actually, the guy Nim, forget his last name, but the director, he was making a point in a press conference that we were deploying resources the night of. They had put out, alerts Thursday to be prepared for flooding. They learned that the forecast was going to be there was some modeling that was exceeded the 4 to 6 inches that they had predicted, and so they put swiftwater rescue boats deployed. Because he said they were able to respond immediately, so they knew. So the $1 million question is, knowing that, I guess what did the camps know? Was that information related to the camps? Why didn't they, respond when they did? And critically, we can talk about this in a bit, but they had no outdoor warning siren, like a tornado siren, like a lot of other flood communities do.
You anticipate my next question there, Jim. I was going to ask you. You cover the you cover the West Coast for the Wall Street Journal. You've covered the California wildfires, probably more of them than you'd like to think about. What sort of warning systems are in place in California to warn people about impending disasters there? Do they have sirens? What kind of systems do they have? What can we learn from that?
So California is kind of state of the art in terms of alerts, and a lot of that's been learned the hard way, honestly, Doug. There was the Tubbs fire. I'm in the Bay. I'm in San Francisco. The Tubbs fire wiped out part of Santa Rosa, California. Dozens of people killed, and that night there wasn't really an alert. There wasn't. They didn't push out the alerts in time, and it was. They've moved that ahead. Now there's something called the WIA, the wireless emergency alert that most California counties have. On top of that, CAL FIRE, which is kind of the umbrella fire agency in the state of California, they make a point that if there is a red flag fire danger that the Weather Service predicts, they deploy strike teams, resources in critical fire areas, and they're ready to go. Los Angeles got criticized because they didn't do the same level of preparedness for Pacific Palisades and Malibu that CAL FIRE would normally do. But I mean, normally you'd have resources ready, kind of like Texas did. But California relies a lot on the phones, and then they'll have the cops go out. In Pacific Palisades, LAPD was going up through the neighborhoods. You need to get out. You need to get out. And they were like helping get people out. Kerr County, what was the sheriff's department doing? What was the fire department doing? We're still trying to get our handles around that. It's still not a lot of time, so I mean, maybe they were out there, but we're just trying to figure that out ourselves.
And this is the thing, though. We don't have to necessarily even go all the way to California to learn lessons. In 1987, this part of the Guadalupe River flooded. We saw that certain areas, based on that, certain areas of the Guadalupe River did put certain sirens. And why do we know why this area, particularly where there are going to be children coming in for summer camps, there haven't been any sirens put in, just basic alert systems.
Celeste, that is really a puzzling question and troubling, actually. Excuse me. Yesterday, we dove into the minutes of the Kerr County Commissioner's Court going back the last decade. In 2016, there's the sheriff then. His name was Rusty Heelholzer. He's retired now. But they were talking about, I think we need to get outdoor warning sirens. Comal County, New Braunfels, right next door, they have a wonderful system, state of the art. It's way ahead of ours. They have 8 sirens, and that's along the Guadalupe also. And the sheriff was saying, and I'll just read this because it's so compelling. He said, and this he's talking about the 1987 flood. He said, the one thing we've talked about, all the RV parks, but the most important thing that we have always run across, and that's been, we spent hours in these helicopters pulling kids out of trees from our summer camps. And a lot of that, is during our flooding time. You need the sirens. He said this in 2016. There was a commissioner there named Tom Moser. He was saying that, we need to get on this, but we need to get some money. So basically, they asked for a grant from the Texas Division of Emergency Management, and it was declined. In 2018, they came back. And that we were declined. It didn't say why. It's $1 million grant. And then 2023 it came up again, and 2 more requests for grants declined. We tried to ask the state why. They haven't responded. I know they're busy, but they haven't really answered that question yet. But the point is, they knew that they needed sirens, that they didn't get them.
This is a recurring phenomenon in disasters. I did a lot of research on the 1900 storm in Galveston a few years back. And what I discovered by digging through old city council meeting minutes in Galveston was that a hurricane had struck in 1875, another one in 1886. There was discussion about building a seawall, an awful lot of talk about it. Yeah, we need to get onto this. We need to get onto this. And then after a while, memories just faded, and 1900 came around, and 6,000 to 8,000 people died before they got around to building the seawall. This is a recurring phenomenon, so you've got to wonder, are they going to jump onto it now? Is there going to be a discussion at city council meetings or at the state? It sounds like there's an awful lot of finger pointing going on over there. So.
Well, there's actually a bill that was introduced in the Texas legislature in March by a representative up from in the Panhandle after the Texas Panhandle wildfires that would it would create a statewide network of money for counties to get warning sirens, specifically for sirens and other equipment. And it died in committee. I don't know why it died in committee in I think May. But yeah, I mean they know they need this and they don't get it. And I think Doug, you're right. It's just kind of like the emergency moves on. They just kind of other things happen. There's priorities and costs and that kind of thing. But yeah.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking to Jim Carlton, a West Coast correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. You can give us a call at 713-440-8870 to join the conversation. Right now we have a call from Thomas from Montgomery. Thomas, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question for Jim?
Well, where I used to live in New Jersey, people were hit by lightning. So they put people hit and killed by lightning. And so they put in sensors that detect an electrical disturbance in the atmosphere at a certain distance, I think an eighth of a mile or something like that. And it's near the school. So anytime there's an electrical storm, the siren goes off, and you can hear it. And you can hear it all over the place. And a lot of towns have them. I don't see why they can't have some kind of a thing for flooding. Put a siren in. Of course, people have to pay attention to them. That's a problem. There's no siren down here for lightning or anything, because I were hurt by now. I've been here 6 years. Mm-hmm. But you need some kind of sirens. You need to tell people about it. And this is a crazy state where you got a governor who wants people to carry guns. What can you do with a gun? Fire a gun into the flood and prevent the flood? I mean,
thank you, Thomas. Crazy. Thank you for your comments, Thomas. Jim, what do you think about that? Everybody's just kind of sitting here saying, pointing at the most obvious thing. Why wasn't there a siren? And it sounds like the local community it's been brought up before.
Well, Celeste, we don't know for sure that this would have made a difference. We don't know that. We'll never know that. But what we can say is that down the river, Comfort, Texas, in Kendall County, they had sirens. When the floodwaters were approaching there, the sirens sounded. I don't know if anybody died. Maybe a small number in Kendall County, but it wasn't the catastrophic loss of life like we saw in Kerr County. So, I mean, we can say that the sirens did sound downstream. People did get out of the way. And, I mean, like tornadoes. I mean, it's just good to have a head start. I mean, even if these poor girls had 5, I was talking to there's a woman in San Antonio named Nicole Wilson. She's so upset. She's an Army veteran. She said she's started a change.org petition to get, make, the whole state, every flood-prone county in the state have these outdoor warning sirens. They cost maybe $40,000 each. It's not really that much. I mean, it's a lot, but it's not backbreaking. And but I mean, I suspect Kerr County will get the. I mean, now they probably will. I mean, but it's just sad.
And it's noteworthy, I think, that the Governor Abbott has said he's going to add some sort of response to this, to the that's going to be discussed in this upcoming special session of the legislature. And perhaps it will get more attention now because of this disaster, and also because the agenda is so much shorter for special sessions. Maybe finally something will happen.
That's right. And again, you can join the conversation, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Wayne from Galveston. Welcome to Hello Houston, Wayne. What is your comment or question?
My comment is we can have an Amber Alert for a missing child, an Amber Alert for the lottery ticket, an Amber Alert for this and that. But if a train is on the track and see a car, it blow a horn, the car get off the track. But what I don't understand, even if they took the kids' phones and electronics, that means you're going to protect them. You got to blow a horn or have something because you had this done in 87. It shouldn't be that many people dead. And people keep saying, well, this would have happened, this couldn't have happened. There's a whole lot of stuff couldn't happen. I couldn't have woke up in the morning. But what I'm saying is, quit cutting this money. These taxpayers sending money, protect them kids. That's the next generation. Ain't no reason in the world that we losing these kids like we losing them, and we supposed to be the grown-ups. And I leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Well, it sounds like we've got a consensus, at least here on the airwaves, about this. Let's see if state lawmakers do
it's
it.
interesting, though, Doug and Jim, that everybody's saying this is very obvious, but whenever these type of topics or issues actually go to a city council meeting and have to take a vote, and you're looking at funding, a lot of times it boils down to people don't want their tax money to the taxpayers don't want to pay more taxes. And from what I understand, when they brought this up at multiple different times at City Council in Kerr County, that was one of the reasons why it never kind of took. Jim, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Now, wasn't there a sheriff or someone who made a comment in that regard up there saying, the taxpayers aren't interested?
Taxpayers aren't interested.
Yeah, exactly. His name's he's the judge of Kerr County.
Yes.
There we are.
And he made a couple of public statements that we did consider these sirens, but the taxpayers wouldn't support it. I don't know. They clearly did want these. The commission, the county commission was trying to get money from the state. So I don't know whether they're trying to get $1 million. That's a lot of money, but then again, how much money is going to cost now? This disaster and the incalculable loss of life. So, we actually tried to talk to that judge ourselves to ask him the same question. He's a very busy guy, so he hasn't returned our calls yet. But that's it's a great question.
Jim, my other question for you is, as somebody who has covered the California wildfires so closely, and now you're looking at this, are you seeing any parallels, or is it drastically different when you're covering something like natural disasters? And specifically, what are you seeing, some of the parallels and some of the differences?
Well, I was just talking to some of my colleagues. I also covered the Lahaina wildfires out in Maui that destroyed the entire town. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying, this really reminds me of, years. We went through the minutes of, Maui County Fire Commission meetings going back years, and also found, we really need to do more to protect Lahaina. It's going to burn up. These winds come in, and there's all this old, the sugarcane fields that are not, there's grass in them, and it's very flammable. We need to do something. There was actually a fire that almost took out Lahaina, like 2 years before it got taken out. And then they were talking that we urgently need to do more to evacuate. Nothing happened until the town burned up, and 100 people died. It's the worst loss of life in modern U.S. history. I just think that humans sometimes learn the hard way. Mm-hmm.
And again, you can join the conversation, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Benjamin from Coleman, Texas. Benjamin, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Yes, in regards to the sirens and this and that, one thing that we do, for example, in Coleman, we all have a weather radio, and we hang it in any of the hallways of the house. And you can be asleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, and this raspy noise will come on, along with this is the National Weather Service in San Angelo, Texas. A tornado warning has been issued and they track the tornado. They tracked it even 3 miles away from my house one time about 6-7 years ago. So why is it that this camps didn't have those weather radios, et cetera, and who regulates this camps that issue licenses without an emergency system, even a weather radio to be posted on site?
You raise a good question.
That's a
very good question.
Thanks for calling. Jim, do you have any insight on kind of that regulation in camps? Have y'all seen anything? Has that ever come up before in some of the documentation that y'all are looking through?
Well, it's interesting that the caller just brought that up, because I just got an email from somebody with like a weather radio manufacturer talking about that exact same thing. And I was thinking the same thing, like maybe weather radios would do it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. He also raised a good question. The regulation of these camps, do they have to do drills? Do they, so my kids were in Boy Scouts out here in California, and they were in a camp where it's fire. So they always have to do like a fire at the beginning of the camp. They'd assemble all the boys and say, okay, here's where you come in case there's a wildfire. You know what? They would do the protocol of what to do if there's a wildfire. And so I don't know if they did any flood protocols there. I suspect not because it's so. It doesn't happen hardly ever. I mean, it's very unusual. But I mean, yeah. I mean, the caller raised some really two good questions.
So Jim, what can people expect from some of the coming from your coverage? Can you tell us anything? What you all will be looking for moving forward?
Well, this is such a huge story, Celeste. We're trying to do a timeline of just exactly what happened. We're doing more accountability of what could be done better. I mean, all of these disasters, as Doug knows. Doug and I, by the way, go back to the early '80s Houston police reporters. We have some, some stories to tell from those days, and no one's covered more Texas disasters than Doug Miller. He's the legend in terms of hurricane coverage.
A legend.
Shout out to Doug there.
Shout out to Doug Miller.
All right, thanks, Jim. You'll get the money in the mail later.
But anyway, so it's just we're just going to keep trying to follow just follow the story.
And Jim Carlton, West Coast correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. Jim, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me. It's great being with you guys.